Hi. In January of 2020, I invited volunteer couples to talk to me about their personality types and their relationships. I have 18 email addresses of interesting people on a list, and I was able to speak to 6 couples before everything went upside down and we all had to reprioritize. So I've already shared clips from the interviews on my Instagram, and in this video, I thought I would take you a little bit behind the scenes and tell you more about the process and maybe some preliminary findings. And I'm going to share my screen now because yes, there are slides. Bear with. And you should see those now. So here you have my website. You can find more information on the website. And I'm in the process of separating my 2 Instagram accounts. If you're not subscribing already, then you can find me there. So let's get started. Here's how the research process worked so far. I asked for volunteers on my website during type workshops that I gave and a pitch that I did at my local Creative Mornings meeting here in Brooklyn. People signed up to learn more and then received an automated email response with information about what I was hoping to do. They signed a waiver to allow me to record our sessions. And then if they did not know their type preferences, we scheduled an individual type self-discovery session where we looked at whole pattern preferences using Linda Behrens's interaction styles and essential motivator models. And if that's a bit of thunder there. If people were in between 2 types, we added cognitive dynamics and looked at the function stacks. And if you're interested in what all that means, I can make some videos around those models as well. Once we knew both type patterns, I took some time and put together a side-by-side comparison of similarities and differences, and then highlighting potential stressors and suggestions of how to overcome them. Those are the love profiles. And then we scheduled an interview with both partners together where I asked my relationship related questions and where we discussed the profiles. After that, to quote Blackadder, we all went home for tea. I sent out a follow-up email with the profiles in PDF for the people to keep and a link with a request to fill out a feedback form. And so far that has been it. Some participants have expressed that they would like to receive follow-up emails with maybe weekly reminders of tips on what to do to keep all the insights top of mind. I'm still figuring out how to best deliver that because with the 16 type patterns, there are 139, I believe, possible combinations. So obviously I want to make it custom and that's going to take a little more work. I use an online service to transcribe the recordings and it's not perfect, but it's a start. So I'm still spending time listening to them and, making updates and edits, making clips for social media. But obviously I have to dig in more and deeper to get at more gems and insights. And I'm still playing with a few ways to dissect that information. But as long as the group is small, the sample size is small, I kind of like them as is. So keep it as a couple and looking at themes maybe that I'm going to do in a moment with one of the questions. What else? The time commitment for the volunteers. Most couples, what worked best was if we scheduled it all in one day. So Saturday mornings, we would have the type verifications, first with one partner, then with the other partner. And then we would break for lunch. I would put the profiles together. And then we'd come back after lunch, ask the research questions, and discuss the profiles. There was one couple with children that I know of. We broke it up over several days. It really depends on what works best for the couple. Time of the sessions varied also depending on how many questions they had or how lengthy the answers to my questions were. But ballpark, the type verifications were about 75 to 90 minutes each. And then the interviews were between an hour and a bit to 2.5, 3 hours even. And then the discussion is about half an hour to an hour. Again, it depends on each couple. I try to only schedule one a day so that I have as much time as needed. I do make very clear throughout the process that this is not therapy, that we're not even going into coaching mode. I'm just providing the information of the type-related similarities, differences, stressors, and how to get out of them. And we've done sessions in person and online. There was one couple in London, and it works well in both modes. So if you'd like to participate, let me know. How do I click? Okay, so let's get into a little more meat. As of, like I said, I've spoken to 6 couples so far, all heterosexual, all monogamous. And in no particular order, we had an INTJ female with an INFP male, an ISFP female with an ENTJ male, an INFP female and an ENFP male, INFP female and an ENFJ male, ENFJ female and ISTJ male, ENFJ female and INTP male. That last couple, ENFJ and INTP, they did sign a waiver, but I got the feeling that in the end they were not going to be comfortable with me discussing their insights, so we're not going to talk about them. To give you an idea of who's in the mix by interaction style and essential motivator patterns, the models that we used going through, here is an overview of what we have. I'm showing it by gender because the sample size isn't representative enough for age or location or, you know, any other factor yet. And you can see it's pretty obvious there's a catalyst majority. So we have 6 people with NF preferences in their code. And then as a nod to the Myers-Briggs model, because that's how many people understand personality type, and it might serve as a relatable point of entry if you're not in, you know, deep in the type world. Here's an overview of the letters. If we look at which letter is represented the most of the whole group, that's how we get to our median type, which for this group is INFJ, and then with an equal distribution of, sorry, INF, and then the equal distribution of J and P. So in terms of cognitive dynamics, the dominant and auxiliary functions of the median type are introverted intuiting and extroverted feeling, as well as introverted feeling and extroverted intuiting. If these mean nothing to you, I do have an overview of all the functions in my Instagram feed if you want to take a look and, you know, maybe refresh yourselves. So much for the behind the scenes information. Now let's get a little bit into the content. The questions I ask in the interview portion are open-ended and quite universal because I want to see if different, you know, people with different type preferences answer them differently. Some of them worked out that way. Obviously, again, I have to go into more detail, but others also show themes, and I thought I'd share one of them here. When are you most drawn to your partner is one of the questions. And some of these quotes now are verbatim, some are paraphrased. The ENFP said when she's happy and enjoying herself or in her element. One of the ENFJs said when he's doing mundane things like going to IKEA, or when people respond to his kindness because that's the version of him I know so well. The INTJ says when he feels pride in doing something for himself and when there is self-fulfilling exhilaration. The INFP said when he is assertive and has a plan, one of the INFPs. The other ENFJ says when I see her with friends and it brings up this light, laughing, excited side of her, when she has profound cuteness aggression and she tenses up at something adorable, and when she demos her expertise and to see how powerful and talented she is. I'm talking about when he's looking over her shoulder when she does work. The other INFP said, when we're working in the same place on something we equally care about, are highly engaged, and she looks up at me and smiles. The ISFP says, when we talk about the hard stuff, like taking care of our parents, and then when he's cooking, when he's attentive, noticing details and showing how he cares. And the ENTJ said, when we handle uncomfortable situations and change together. And last but not least, the ISTJ said, when she's in her zone of genius, focused, passionate, and enthusiastic. So the themes I saw are, we are drawn to our partners when they're doing something they love, when they're in their element. And I hear that as also when they're maybe being unself-conscious. A variation of that theme was mentioned by the ENFP, the ISTJ, and both of the ENFJs. And what that says to me is we love when we see our partners as equals and when there is no expectation on us. They don't need us to do anything. They don't have to contort themselves for us. Everyone can just be who they are and make themselves happy. So there's, no codependency, it's just freedom. And then the second theme I saw is we're drawn to our partners when they do what we like in ourselves. So the INTJ and the ENTJ, whose theorist patterns really values competence and self-mastery, as well as problem solving. So that is something that they appear to be drawn to in their partners as well. And for the two ENFJs, I also noticed that since they are both partnered with an introverted type, they delight in seeing their partner share the lovely, beautiful, capable, amazing selves with others in the outside world. Maybe because that may not happen very often, since, sharing everything in the outside world may be a little outside of the introvert's comfort zone. So obviously the sample size is way too small to make any predictions. And to be clear, that is not my intention anyway. This is qualitative research, anecdotal, because I love diving into and talking about relationships with actual individuals. I believe all patterns can have fulfilling relationships with one another, and that we should not discriminate potential friends or partners based on type. Type explains a lot, but it does not explain everything. And especially in romantic relationships, we're also living out the relationship patterns that we've learned from observing our parents when we were young. And the expression of our type is always influenced in some ways by our surroundings and our levels of development. So here's one more thing I want to share before we go. Linda Behrens introduced me to this very powerful tool. This is another model. We use it in the self-discovery process to clarify the various selves our behaviors might be coming from at any given time. So we're all born into a context, a country, a culture, a family system. Everything happens in a situation, and every context and situation exerts pressures on the individual in the form of rules or expectations. Our core selves that are born into this context have their own pressures and drives to meet our needs. And if we want to be effective, sometimes context wins and we have to modulate. And so then we have the contextual self with the current behavior. If and when we practice certain behaviors habitually, for example, at work, the context is work, so we do a certain thing. And many of you say, I'm one thing at home and I'm another thing at work. Then you're probably expressing variations of your developed self. And that's probably the most you that you are right now. It's a mix of the core you bring to the table, to the world, to every context, and the skills and behaviors you've developed with practice over time to respond to the needs of that context. And that's actually what I love best about psychological type, which is, you know, Jung's model, personality models. If we go back to the original intention that Carl Jung had 100 years ago, he states that we come into the world with a predisposition to use our brain a certain way. And that core type pattern is the starting point. So those 4 letters that Myers-Briggs, you know, came to help us understand Jung's theory through the questionnaire, that is the starting point. And by definition, the starting point does not change, but the whole framework is a tool to describe type as a path to individual and intentional development. And that is a whole other letter in and of itself. So for couples, to bring it back, and especially throughout difficult relationship situations and the different stages of relationships, it's very helpful to know what the core type preferences are and how they're different, because then there is a language to describe what is happening in the stressful context, like during weeks of working from home or becoming a new parent. And with that language and awareness, we build an appreciation of our partner, how they're different from us, how they complement our blind spots. And we also become more aware of ourselves and what we need and how, you know, to ask for what we need based on those preferences. And I think I'll leave it here for now. If you have any more questions, if you'd like to see anything else explained, please let me know. I look forward to sharing more of my research as I go. And where did you go? Share more of the research as we go forward, as I dig deeper. Like I said, if you have any couples, if you know any couples, if you are in a couple who'd like to participate in this research, if you're open, let me know also. I'd love to hear it. And here's an ask that if you're listening to any podcasts that are around the subject of couples and or personality type, or if you have any blogs, I'm looking for ways and means and, you know, to reach people. That would be great if you could share those with me as well. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. Stay safe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.